My husband threw me onto the street with nothing but a suitcase and rain-soaked clothes. No explanation. No mercy. Just cold eyes and a locked door. Desperate and broke, I took the only job I could find, cleaning offices at night in his company. I thought I'd stay invisible, forgotten. But then I found the photograph. Then the files with my name. Then the meetings held in shadows, where they whispered about me like I was already gone. I should have walked away, but I didn't. And what I discovered in that building? On the floor, I was warned never to enter. Changed everything I thought I knew about my life. My name is Elaine Harper, and I need to tell you something I've kept buried for years. I was born in 1973 in a forgettable town just outside St. Louis. The kind of place where everyone knows your business before you do. My mother raised me on double shifts at the diner and overnight stocking at the grocery store. My father disappeared 3 weeks before my 9th birthday. No note, no goodbye. Just gone. My mother never cried about it, at least not in front of me. She just kept working, kept moving forward. But she said something I'll never forget. She said, "Men leave, but their shadows never do." I was too young to understand. I thought she was just being poetic, trying to make sense of abandonment. I had no idea she was preparing me. At 19, I met Daniel Harper at a community college mixer. He wasn't like the other boys. He wore button-down shirts that actually fit, spoke about futures instead of weekends. And when he looked at me, I felt like I mattered, like I was someone worth choosing. We dated for 4 years. He proposed on my 23rd birthday with a ring he said he saved 6 months to buy. I believed every word. I married him in a small ceremony with 30 guests and a cake from the grocery store bakery. My mother attended but didn't smile in a single photograph. When I asked her why, she just squeezed my hand and said, "I hope I'm wrong about him, baby." I laughed it off. I thought she was bitter, damaged by my father's betrayal. I was certain Daniel was different. Before we dive into Elaine's story, if you love real-life mysteries and shocking twists, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss what happens next. Drop a comment below if you've ever felt like someone was watching you. And smash that like button because this story will leave you speechless. For 15 years, I played the role I thought I was supposed to. I kept our house spotless. I cooked dinners he rarely showed up for. I smiled at company events and laughed at jokes I didn't find funny. Daniel climbed the corporate ladder at Harmon Industrial Solutions, a mid-sized manufacturing firm downtown. He started as a project manager and clawed his way to senior executive. The higher he climbed, the less I saw him. And the less I saw him, the more I convinced myself everything was fine. We were building something. We were secure. But by the time I turned 38, I realized I didn't know the man sleeping next to me. I didn't know what he did on those late nights. I didn't know who he called when he stepped outside during dinner. I didn't even know if he loved me anymore. Then came that night, October 14th. I remember because it was our anniversary. 15 years, I'd made reservations at the Italian place he used to take me to when we were dating. I wore the blue dress he once said made me look beautiful. He never came home. At 11 p.m., I called him, no answer. At midnight, I heard his car in the driveway. I went to the door, smiling, ready to forgive him for forgetting. But when he walked in, his face was stone. He didn't say hello. He didn't apologize. He just walked past me, grabbed a suitcase from the hall closet, and started throwing my clothes into it. I stood there frozen, watching him empty my drawers, yank my dresses off hangers, toss my shoes into a garbage bag. I asked him what he was doing. He didn't answer. I asked him again, louder this time. He stopped, turned to me and said, "Elaine, you don't belong here anymore." I felt my legs go weak. I asked him why. I begged him to explain. He just picked up the suitcase, opened the front door, and threw everything onto the lawn. It was pouring rain, the kind of rain that soaks through to your bones in seconds. He stood there in the doorway, backlit by the warm glow of our living room, and looked at me like I was a stranger. His eyes were so cold, so empty. I stepped outside into the rain, my clothes scattered across the wet grass, and I didn't recognize my own life anymore. That's when my mother appeared. She'd been staying with us for the week, recovering from a minor surgery. She grabbed my arm before I could collapse, held me upright, and whispered directly into my ear. "When your husband kicks you out, don't argue. Watch the shadows instead." Then she helped me gather what we could carry, loaded me into her car, and drove me to her apartment across town. I didn't sleep that night. I just replayed his words over and over. "You don't belong here anymore." 2 days later, I went back to the house while Daniel was at work. I still had my key. I don't know what I was looking for. Answers? Maybe. Proof that I wasn't losing my mind. I walked through our bedroom, our bathroom, the guest room we always said we'd turn into a nursery someday. Everything looked the same, but it felt wrong. Like a stage set, like I'd been living in a performance. I went into his office, a room he always kept locked. But that day, it was open. I stepped inside. His desk was immaculate. Files stacked perfectly. Pens lined up, and then I saw the drawer. the bottom left one. It was slightly ajar. I pulled it open. Underneath a stack of invoices, I found a photograph. It was me, standing in our bedroom, wearing my nightgown. The angle was wrong. It wasn't taken from inside the room. It was taken from outside. Through the window, I had no money, no job history that mattered. Daniel had controlled everything. The bank accounts, the credit cards, even the car was in his name. My mother let me stay in her spare room, the one with the water stain on the ceiling and boxes stacked against the walls. She didn't ask questions. She just made me tea every morning and told me the same thing. You'll figure it out. But I didn't feel like I would. I felt hollowed out. Like someone had reached inside me and removed everything that made me Elaine. I applied everywhere. Retail stores, restaurants, reception desks. Nobody called back. Then one afternoon, my mother handed me a newspaper with a job circled in red ink. Night shift cleaning position at Harmon Industrial Solutions, Daniel's company. I looked at her like she'd lost her mind. She just shrugged and said, "They won't recognize you in a uniform at 3 a.m, and you need money." She was right. I hated that she was right. I applied online using my maiden name, Elaine Moss. 2 days later, I got a call from a woman named Marilyn Carter. Everyone called her Lynn. She was the HR manager, and her voice was syrupy sweet, the kind of sweet that makes your teeth ache. She told me I was hired. No interview necessary. She said they needed someone immediately. She also said you'll be working nights, so you won't run into many people. It's peaceful, quiet, perfect for someone who needs space to think. I didn't tell her I needed space. I didn't tell her anything, but somehow she knew. My first shift started the following Monday. I showed up at 11 p.m. wearing the uniform they mailed me, a gray polo and black pants that smelled like industrial detergent. The building looked different at night. Cold, empty, the fluorescent lights buzzed too loud, and my footsteps echoed down hallways I used to walk through in heels and blazers. Now I was invisible. Just another cleaner pushing a cart. Tommy Briggs was the night security guard. He was older, maybe mid-60s, with thick glasses and a thermos of coffee that never seemed too empty. He was sitting at the front desk when I walked in. He looked up, studied me for a moment, then nodded. "You're the new cleaner." I nodded back. He stood up, walked around the desk, and leaned in close. His voice dropped to a whisper. "Listen, there's only one rule here. Don't go to the 9th floor. There's no reason for you to be up there. No offices to clean, no trash to take out. You stay on floors 1 through 8. Understood?" I asked him why. He just shook his head. "Because I'm telling you not to." Then he handed me a keycard and went back to his chair. I didn't push it. I just took my cart and started working. The first few nights were uneventful. I cleaned conference rooms, wiped down desks, vacuumed endless stretches of industrial carpet. I saw Janice Morales once, the day shift cleaner. She was leaving as I arrived and we crossed paths in the stairwell. She looked exhausted. I said hello. She looked at me like I'd startled her, then hurried past without a word. On my 4th night, I met Evan Rhodes. He was the IT technician, a wiry guy in his late 20s who always wore headphones. He was sitting in one of the cubicles on the 3rd floor, staring at lines of code on 3 monitors. I asked him if he needed me to come back later. He pulled off his headphones and smiled. "Nah, I'm always here. I'm like the furniture." He was friendly, too friendly. He asked me my name, where I was from, if I liked the job. I gave short answers. I didn't want to make friends. I just wanted to disappear. But then things started feeling wrong. Small things at first. I'd leave my cart in one spot and find it moved when I came back. I'd turn off lights in a room and see them back on minutes later. I'd hear footsteps behind me in empty hallways. And the elevator. The elevator was the worst. It would stop on the 9th floor even when I didn't press the button. The doors would slide open and I'd be staring into darkness. No lights, no movement. Just black. I'd press the close button as fast as I could. But once, I heard something. Typing rapid, frantic typing echoing from somewhere deep inside that floor. I told Tommy about it the next night. He didn't look surprised. He just said, "Did you get off?" I said no. He said, "Good, keep it that way." But then I checked the visitor log. It was a clipboard Tommy kept at the front desk, tracking everyone who entered and exited the building. I flipped through the pages out of boredom, killing time during my break. And there it was, my name. Elaine Moss entered 9th floor, 2:14 a.m. I stared at it. My handwriting wasn't next to it. Someone else had signed me in. But I was cleaning the lobby at 2:14 a.m. I know because I remembered checking my phone. I was vacuuming near the front windows. I was nowhere near the 9th floor. I showed Tommy. He ripped the page out, crumpled it, and threw it in the trash. "Must have been a mistake," he said. But his hands were shaking. On my 3rd week, I was emptying the trash in Lynn Carter's office. She wasn't there. Nobody was. It was 2 in the morning. I was tying up the bag when I heard papers hit the floor. A folder had fallen off her desk, spilling documents everywhere. I bent down to pick them up, and that's when I saw it. A file with a label printed across the top. Harper Industrial Case Study. Subject EH. My initials. I opened it. Inside were pages and pages describing a woman, age 47. Divorced, former nurse. Mental health history noted as unstable tendencies. Risk factor high. I read it twice. None of it was me. I wasn't 47. I wasn't a nurse. I wasn't divorced, not legally, and I'd never had any mental health issues. But my initials were right there. EH. I heard footsteps. I shoved the papers back into the folder and placed it on Lynn's desk. She appeared in the doorway seconds later, smiling that too-wide smile. Oh, Elaine. Burning the midnight oil? I see. I asked her about the file. I said I saw my initials. She laughed. A light, tinkling laugh that didn't reach her eyes. Oh, that's not you, dear. That's our simulation file. We run psychological models on hypothetical employees. Risk assessments. Behavioral predictions. It's all theoretical. I asked her why it had my initials. She tilted her head. Coincidence. There are thousands of EHs in the world. Then she picked up the folder and tucked it under her arm. I'll take this. You should get back to work. I left. But I didn't believe her. That night, I got home at 6 in the morning. I collapsed into bed. At 8, my phone buzzed. An email. From Daniel's work account. The subject line was blank. I opened it. It read, Elaine, the file is not hypothetical. Stay away from HR. I stared at the screen. The timestamp said 3:12 a.m., but Daniel was in Miami. He'd posted a photo on social media from his hotel room just hours earlier. I checked his flight information online. He'd flown out 2 days ago. He was still there. So who sent the email? I started watching everyone. I couldn't help it. Every person I passed in those hallways at night felt like a threat. I noticed the way Lynn would appear out of nowhere, always smiling, always asking how I was settling in. I noticed how Tommy would look away when I signed the visitor log now, like he didn't want to see what I wrote. And Evan stopped talking to me completely. He'd see me coming and pack up his laptop, headphones still on, and leave whatever room I entered. One night I cornered him in the break room. I asked him if I'd done something wrong. He looked terrified. He glanced at the camera in the corner, then back at me and whispered, I'm not getting involved again. Again, that word stuck in my throat like a stone. I asked him what he meant. He just shook his head and walked out. I started seeing new faces. Ruth Sanderson was Daniel's private assistant, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and sharper heels. She never acknowledged me. Not once. But I'd see her lingering near my cleaning cart, watching me work. And then there was Mr. Klein, one of the board members. I recognized him from company parties I used to attend as Daniel's wife. He'd always been polite back then, charming even. Now he looked at me like I was a specimen under glass. One night, I was cleaning the executive conference room on the 7th floor. It was late past 3 in the morning. I was wiping down the long table when I felt something strange under the edge. Tape. I pulled. A small USB drive came loose in my hand. I looked around. The room was empty. The camera in the corner had a piece of electrical tape over the lens. Someone had covered it on purpose. I pocketed the drive and finished my shift. When I got home, I didn't sleep. I sat at my mother's kitchen table and plugged the drive into her old laptop. It took forever to load. When it finally did, I saw folders. Dozens of them, all labeled with dates. I clicked on the most recent one, security footage. But not the kind you'd expect. These weren't shots of hallways or lobbies. They were zoomed in personal. I watched as the video played. It showed the same conference room I'd just been cleaning. But this footage was from 2 weeks ago. Late at night, the board members were there. Mr. Klein, Ruth Sanderson, 2 men I didn't recognize. And they were projecting images on the screen. Images of me. Photos of me in my kitchen. In my bedroom, getting dressed, brushing my teeth, walking through my living room, angles no one should have had access to. Angles that could only have been taken from inside my house. My hands went numb. I wanted to stop watching, but I couldn't. One of the men leaned forward and asked, so when do we move forward? Another voice, older, raspier, answered, when she breaks, that's when she signs. Sign what? I didn't understand. What could I possibly have that they needed me to sign? The video cut to another clip. Same room, different night. This time Daniel was there. He looked exhausted, angry. His tie was loose, his sleeves rolled up. Someone asked him a question I couldn't hear. He rubbed his face and said, she's close. She doesn't even know what she already signed. I hit pause. I stared at the screen. He was wearing the same clothes he wore the night he threw me out. The same gray suit, the same wrinkled collar, which meant this meeting happened the same night, or right after. While I was gathering my soaked clothes off the lawn, he was here. Planning something? I didn't go to work the next night. I stayed home and tried to piece it together. but nothing made sense. My mother watched me from the doorway, arms crossed. She didn't ask what was wrong. She just said, "You're getting close to something, aren't you?" I nodded. She sighed. "Then be careful. People don't hide things unless they're afraid you'll find them." The following night, I went back. I had to. I needed answers. Tommy was at the front desk, as always. But tonight, he looked different. Nervous when I signed in, he slipped a folded piece of paper under my hand. I didn't open it until I reached the second floor. It said, "Leave by midnight. Something's happening at 12:30. I checked my phone. It was 11:40. I should have listened. I should have grabbed my things and walked out. But at 12:20, I heard footsteps. Fast ones, urgent. I peered around the corner and saw them. Tommy, Lynn, Evan, Mr. Klein, 2 other people I'd never seen before. A man in a dark suit with no expression, and a woman, tall, thin, with black hair pulled back so tight it looked painful. She never spoke, never even looked at anyone. They all moved toward the stairwell that led to the basement. I'd never been to the basement. I didn't even know it existed until that moment. I waited until they disappeared, then I followed. My heart was hammering so hard I thought they'd hear it. The basement door was steel, locked with a keypad, but it hadn't closed all the way. I slipped through. The hallway was dim, lit only by flickering fluorescent tubes. I could hear voices ahead. I moved slowly, carefully, until I reached another door. This one had a small window. I looked inside. The room was full of filing cabinets, metal desks, and a long glass wall that divided the space in half. On the other side of the glass was a single chair, empty. A red recording light blinked in the corner. On the desk closest to me were stacks of paper files. I squinted. My name was on every single one. Elaine Harper, Elaine Moss, Subject E.H., Risk Assessment, Psychological Profile, Behavioral Analysis. I heard Lynn's voice. She was standing on the other side of the glass wall, talking to the man in the suit. "She's predictable," Lynn said. "We just need one more trigger." The man nodded. Then another voice spoke. Older male. I couldn't see who it belonged to. He said, her mother warned her. The mothers always do. My blood went cold. How did they know about my mother? What did she warn me about? I pressed closer to the window, trying to see more. That's when I noticed the table in the center of the room. There was a document lying on it printed. Bound. I could just make out the title from where I stood. Interview with Elaine Harper, Confidential, and underneath it, a date. 6 months from now? A date that hadn't happened yet. I waited until Daniel came back from Miami. I had to. I needed to see his face when I asked him what the hell was going on. He walked into the house we used to share, like he still owned it. Technically, he did. I was there because I still had a key, and I knew he'd come home eventually. When he saw me standing in the living room, he stopped. But he didn't look surprised. He didn't look angry. He just looked tired. Like he'd been expecting this. I held up the USB drive. I told him I'd seen the footage, the photos, the meetings, the files with my name. I asked him what they were planning, what they wanted from me. He didn't answer right away. He just set his briefcase down, loosened his tie, and said softly, "Elaine, you weren't supposed to find any of this." I asked him what this was. He walked past me, poured himself a drink, and stared out the window. "If you stay quiet, they'll stop," he said. That was it. No explanation. No apology. Just a warning wrapped in something that almost sounded like concern. I asked him who they were. He didn't answer. I asked him why they had files on me, why they were watching me, why they had footage from inside our home. He took a long sip of his drink and said, "Because you were always part of the plan." Then he told me to leave. He said if I stayed away, if I stopped digging, it would all go away. But I didn't believe him. I couldn't. That night, I went back to work. I didn't know what else to do. I couldn't go to the police. What would I even tell them? That my husband's company had surveillance footage of me. That they were holding secret meetings about someone with my initials? It all sounded insane. I felt insane. I clocked in at 11 and started my rounds. Tommy wasn't at the desk. Someone else was there, a younger guy I'd never seen before. He barely looked at me. I took my cart and headed to the 3rd floor. I was emptying trash bins when I heard footsteps behind me. Fast ones. I turned. It was Ruth Sanderson, Daniel's assistant. She looked panicked. She grabbed my arm and pulled me into an empty office. She whispered, "You need to run. They're not done with you yet." I asked her what she meant. She pulled out her phone, hands shaking, and showed me a photo. A contract. It was old, yellowed at the edges, but the ink was clear. It was a property transfer agreement. My childhood home, my mother's house, the one she left to me when she died. The contract transferred ownership to Harper Industrial, and at the bottom was a signature. My mother's signature, but my mother died when I was 27. She never would have signed anything like this. I would have known. I would have been there, Ruth whispered. They forged it. Years ago, they've been waiting for the right time to use it. I stared at the photo. My hands went cold. Then a message popped up on Ruth's screen. It was from a number with no name. It said, "She knows. Lock the exits." Ruth gasped. Her face went white. She shoved her phone into my hands and said, "Go now." I didn't think, I just ran. I left my cart, left my jacket. I sprinted down the stairwell, my shoes echoing off the concrete. I reached the ground floor and ran toward the main entrance. The automatic doors were ahead. I could see the parking lot through the glass. But as I got closer, the doors didn't open. They should have sensed me. They should have slid apart. Instead, they stayed shut, sealed. I slammed into them, palms flat against the glass. I hit the emergency release. Nothing. Behind me, I heard voices. Footsteps. I turned. The lights in the hallway flickered, and in the reflection of the glass doors, I saw them. 6 silhouettes, maybe more, moving toward me in perfect silence. They were all looking straight at me. I don't know how I got out. I don't remember breaking the glass or finding another exit, but I woke up in my car, parked 3 blocks away, my hands bleeding and my chest heaving. I drove to my mother's apartment. I packed everything I could carry. I took her savings, the cash she kept hidden in a coffee tin. I didn't leave a note. I just disappeared. I drove west. I didn't stop until I hit the coast. I changed my name. Started over. I've been living in Oregon for 14 years now. A small cabin outside Eugene. No neighbors. No visitors. I work remotely. I don't talk to anyone. I don't have to. I thought I was safe. I thought I'd finally escaped whatever Harper Industrial wanted from me. But last month, something arrived in my mailbox. An envelope. No return address. No postage. Just my name written in careful script across the front. I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. I recognized the handwriting immediately. It was my mother's. The same looping letters. The same slant. But my mother has been dead for 25 years. I stared at the paper. It read, "Elaine Harper, Industrial will come again. They're not done with the mothers." At the bottom was her signature. Freshly inked. The paper was crisp. New. Like it had been written yesterday. I sat on my porch and read it over and over until the sun went down. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. And then yesterday, at exactly 12:30 in the morning, someone knocked on my door. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. I froze. I haven't had a visitor in years. I don't know anyone here. I waited. The knocking stopped. I stayed in bed, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. After 10 minutes, I finally got up. I grabbed the bat I keep by the door and looked through the peephole. Nothing. I opened the door slowly. The porch was empty. The woods around my cabin were silent. But on the ground, right in front of the door, was an envelope. I picked it up. My hands were shaking. I opened it. Inside was a photograph. It was me, cleaning the 9th floor of Harper Industrial. The floor Tommy told me never to go to. The floor I never set foot on. I was wearing the same gray uniform. Pushing the same cart. The time stamp in the corner of the photo said last week, but I haven't been back there in 14 years.